Secrets will be revealed. Myths dispelled.
From the studio gym where excuses never apply.
It's Superhuman Radio with your host, Carl Lenore.
Welcome back to another episode of Superhuman Radio. This is the one podcast where we really do discuss legitimate, scientifically driven pro-aging concepts. I know there's one particular biohacker out there who claims to live to be 160 or 180, and that's why he takes this particular multivitamin. I cringe. I really do. I cringe, and I cringe for the people who follow that kind of logic. In the words of Dr. Irina Conboy from the Conboy Lab, where a lot of this information actually originated from, she said on my show something very prophetic. She says, there's nothing you can take that will extend your life. There are only the things that you remove that have the potential to extend your life. And that's very profound. Think about it. Think about it as we discuss on today's show with Paul Tozour about plasmapheresis and plasma. One is called plasma replacement. The other one is called plasma dilution. These are legitimate therapies being promoted now that have profound effects on the markers of aging, of biological aging, which can be tested for. Before we get started, we have to thank our title sponsor, and that's Legendary Foods, makers of the Sweet Roll. If you know anything about aging, you know that low-carb diets appear to support healthy aging. Low-carb diets have been shown in science to reverse brain aging. Think about that. Your brain is already old. You go low-carb, and it starts to show the signs of reversing those signs of aging. And that's why Legendary Food makes snacks that you can eat and not feel deprived. The Sweet Rolls emulate the original Cinnabon that you saw at the airport, at the mall, but that's garbage. These are 1 gram of sugar, 20 grams of high-quality protein, 5 net carbs, cinnamon, chocolate, and wild berry. You'll think you are eating crap, but you're not. You're not cheating, but you are staying in your dietary lane if you're a low-carb person like me. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and use the code SHR10, not only to save 10%, but also to let them know that you heard about it here on Superhuman Radio. Hi, Paul. What did I do? There you go. Hi, Paul. How are you?
Hey, Carl. Great to be here. Doing great. Thank you.
Welcome back. So I call Paul a pro-aging juggernaut. We all are looking to do the same thing. Every one of us. If I asked 20 people in my audience who here wants to live longer and resist disease as they age, everyone would raise their hand. But what are you doing about it? Everybody wishes, everybody thinks about it. Some of us I'm taking NMN now. I'm taking I'm taking resveratrol now. Those aren't the answer. They may be able to minimize some of the assaults associated with your lifestyle, but in order to really reverse aging, you have to do some things that most people would probably find they'd be hesitant to jump into. But Paul, like myself, we do read all the science and we apply critical thinking. And we know that taking a multivitamin isn't going to do it. Sometimes you have to do other things. But before we get into this follow-up of his first interview, I want to share something with you. You know, who Paul is. Paul, you spent a career developing video games, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, more than 25 years in the video game industry.
Any names, and we'll tell why that's important in this discussion, but any names that people would recognize video game?
Yeah, I mean, not many of the games that I worked on, were huge hits or anything like that. Probably the biggest ones, I worked on 2 of the games in the Metroid Prime series for Nintendo, on the Nintendo Wii and the GameCube. Also worked on like MechWarrior 4 at Microsoft, ran a team at Intel for a little while. Whole bunch of others.
So coding for a living.
Mm-hmm.
explain what it's like. You get up in the morning,
Yeah.
you have your breakfast, you have your coffee, you run to work, and then you sit for how many hours and type?
Yeah, video games. The video game industry is pretty unique in that crunch is still a pretty huge thing in the video game industry. There are a lot of teams that really burn people out quite deliberately. A lot of cultural problems there. I had many times where I would work 80-hour weeks for years at a time. I pulled a couple all-nighters. A lot of parts of the industry still really glorify overtime, and that took a huge toll on my health. Absolutely terrible. And so even though I tried to work out as often as I could, especially on weekends, there were times when I went months without a workout. My diet was not very good. And so my health was not in a great state until my early 40s or so.
How bad was your health? Like, give us a snapshot metabolically.
Yeah, so I was never diabetic, but I would say I was certainly at times, especially in my 30s, I was borderline pre-diabetic. My weight got up to, I'm 6'1", and my weight got up to 230, I think, at one point, something like that, which is pretty horrible. Yeah, sleep was a huge problem. It took me a long time to pay off my sleep debt from all of that. Yeah, I was just a big ball of stress at a lot of points. My most recent video game was called Aven Colony, shipped in the middle of 2017 for PC, Xbox One, and PlayStation 4. It's a science fiction city building game, and very proud of what the team did on that project. And that was at a company that I started, and I was the design lead for that, in addition to doing a lot of the coding and biz dev and things like that. But there were parts of that project that were just crazy stressful, especially in 2015, we were having a really hard time with our first publisher, and that whole year, 2015, is just a blur to me. Yeah, so that really destroyed my health as well.
I'm living that right now, this second.
Yeah.
Developing the app for Gun Leash. I'm not developing, a team in India is, and doing this show at the same time. And I'm literally living that. I mean, I know what you mean. So anyway, you left the gaming business when?
About 2.5 years ago. It was, I guess it was 2019. So actually, no, it's about 4 years ago. Whoops, I can't hear you.
I got it.
There you go.
And did you just kind of quasi-retire? Where you're like, that's it, I'm done, I'm not doing this anymore?
Yeah. Essentially, the company still exists, but I'm the only employee. We're just collecting royalties from the publisher in the UK. Still got, a nice royalty stream coming in. But I got to a point in my life where I'm like, this no longer makes sense for me. I don't need to be spending my life under this massive amount of pressure. I'm getting close to the age of 50. And so I need to really focus on making sure the next 50 years of my life are as good as they could possibly be. Because if I don't, I'm screwed.
Right.
So I started working out every day, doing the sauna almost every day, getting into biohacking, learning as much as I could about longevity, reaching out to a lot of anti-aging experts and so on.
Right. And now you are literally becoming one.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm very much a longevity biohacker. That's pretty much my day job nowadays. And I'm more and more starting to focus on, all the little things, all the supplements and things like that. They're all nice, but they're not going to make a big difference, right? You need to focus on what are the big things that are really going to make a huge difference in terms of extending your healthy lifespan.
And quite often those require work, and that is what people hate.
Yeah.
If like somebody tells you, look, you got to get up every day and walk for a half hour in the morning, find some time to train in the afternoon, eat like this, get good sleep. Like they just don't want to do it. And that's why I say living long is hard effing work.
It is. Yep. And to me, the things that are really going to move the needle in terms of pushing healthy lifespan out, beyond just living to 85 and then adding another 10, 15, 20 years with, good diet and exercise. Two classes of things are therapeutic plasma exchange and gene therapy. Because we're going to need gene therapies to really take things to the next level.
Because you can't hack anything. We have this term biohacking, which I don't use. I don't like it. I think it implies some smarmy snake oil approach to health. And this idea, like getting fat. When I was 330 pounds, I biohacked for 10 years to get there.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, give me biohacking. But
Well,
the
I mean, to me, from my point of view, as a former engineer, it speaks to the word hacking, of like taking a complex system and understanding what interventions do I need to make to really change the behavior of this very complex system. And for me, gene therapy is a good example. We can talk later on. My telomeres, I had a huge problem with very short telomeres, and I was able to fix that, right, with a single gene therapy that, as far as I know, is going to last, for probably decades.
It'll keep doing it for decades. What it's
Yes,
doing, right?
It'll keep extending my telomeres.
So let's start off with plasmapheresis. I interviewed the Conboys, and you came on the show because you actually had it done to you in Tennessee, right? You went to a clinic in Tennessee.
Yeah, that's correct. The Maxwell Clinic in Brentwood, just south of Nashville.
Yeah, and a lot of wealthy people live in Brentwood, by the way. A lot of country western stars and Keith Urban and his beautiful wife, Nicole Kidman, live there. So anyway, give the audience the Reader's Digest version of what plasmapheresis is.
Yes. Let me show a slide real quick. I'm going to, all right. Let me just show, okay.
Wait. Happy birthday, Kevin T. Ryan. He's watching the show today. He says, I'm going to have to start taking this stuff very seriously. Oh, in May. I thought he said today. Turning for 54 in May. God bless you. You're still a baby. You got plenty of time. Trust me. Okay. Let's see what we got here.
Okay. So essentially, here's me getting therapeutic plasma exchange or plasmapheresis. Essentially, what they do is they draw the blood out of one arm. They get rid of about 70% of the plasma. The procedure takes anywhere from like 90 minutes to 3.5 hours. And they combine, they extract your red and white blood cells and your platelets into this machine. Then they combine that with fresh, essentially just pure saline solution combined with human albumin, because you've got to have the albumin in your plasma. And so essentially that's replacing 70% of the plasma with each of these procedures. Now, the way I did it at Maxwell Clinic, they recommended I get the treatment in pairs. So one on a Tuesday and then another one on the following Thursday. And each of those replaces 70% of the plasma. So in total, during that week of 2 sessions, about 70% of the plasma would get replaced. And the reason for this is, here, let me show you. Here's a really amazing figure from Dr. Conboy's paper. This is showing key pathways related to therapeutic plasma exchange. Dr. Conboy identified 72 age-associated proteins in blood plasma. And this chart essentially shows here on the leftmost side, you can see these are the older participants in their study, and you can see there's a lot of red dots, and it's more white than blue. On the far right is the young people, right? And these are different shades of blue. And then in the middle are R0, R1, R2, R3, R4, R5. These are additional rounds of therapeutic plasma exchange. And you can see all of these age-associated proteins essentially get the junk cleaned out, so that by the time it gets to R5, it's almost indistinguishable from the young plasma. And so she's been able to identify all of these aging-associated proteins and show that if you clean out these age-associated proteins from your body, you get a profound rejuvenation effect. She was able to put together a biological clock based on the combination of these proteins. And this, to me, is an absolutely amazing slide. You see the orange dots toward the top of this slide. This is showing, comparing the chronological age of the participants on the horizontal axis and the estimated age according to this protein-based clock on the vertical axis. And so a lot of these people had estimated ages, in their 70s and 80s and 90s. And after 5 rounds of therapeutic plasma exchange, suddenly it drops down to the purple dots where, they're 20 or 30 years old, which is just absolutely astounding.
So I want to talk more about this. I want to get in deep with this for a second. So those of you who've been listening to my show know that over the past decade, I started saying that I believe what we consider aging, phenotypical aging, slowing down, skin starts sagging, organs start to malfunction. is the result of metabolic debris. And anybody who's listened to the show that knows they've listened, I've talked about metabolic debris. So many people have come up with different theories. The telomere theory of aging, the mitochondrial theory of aging, Aubrey de Grey, and so on and so forth. And I've said no. The body doesn't know it's Wednesday, January 12th. It doesn't know you're 60 years old. All it knows is that it has accumulated so much junk. When you move into a house and it's brand new, the halls are clear, and then after 30 years, there's wear and tear to the outside of the house. But the real problem with the house is there's junk everywhere. Yes. People die and they die with a house full of junk that has to be torn. This is what happens to your body. It's metabolic debris. Some of this debris comes from what you ingest, and some of it comes from malfunction of organs. And one of the big players in this, I believe, and you'll see where I'm going with this, Paul, is the liver. Okay, so fibrosis, fatty liver, malfunctioning enzyme pathways. The liver gets messed up. The liver is responsible for making 85% of the proteins in plasma. So, and I'm gonna, when we get deeper into this discussion, we look at your last results and then how it kind of came back up. I'm going to make a suggestion that in order to do this right, I actually talked to a physician on the West Coast who was picking my brain about this. I says, before I would do plasmapheresis, which is replacement, take out a quart, put a quart right back in immediately, or plasma dilution, which is donate, go to a blood bank, donate a pint of plasma and wait 4 or 5 days for it to replenish. Drink a lot of water, eat sodium, and let it replenish. Regardless, the liver is still in that process. Whether if the clean plasma you just put back in, it's going to run through that dirty liver, or whether you're depending on the liver to make the proteins back by themselves. I really think in order for plasma donation, plasmapheresis, plasma dilution to really work, you must first go through a process to repair and revive the liver first. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. It has a lot to do with the liver, right? But I do think this process, absolutely helps the liver quite a bit. I noticed in my blood testing, my ALT and AST dropped significantly, and getting a lot of this junk that naturally accumulates in the bloodstream as you age, a lot of these proteins that inhibit the body's repair and increase the amount of inflammation, getting rid of those is going to help the liver significantly.
Right. So now let's talk about, so you went for 2 sessions in October?
Yes, 2 sessions in the middle of October, and then I did 2 more in the middle of January. I don't have any of the results from the January sessions other than the blood test results yet.
So let's look at the October results. So you went, and let's talk about the lab, because a friend of mine owns it, Ryan Smith. The lab that you went for.
True Diagnostic.
Yeah, True Diagnostic.
Yeah, so True Diagnostic has, I believe, the gold standard, the most accurate epigenetic age test. It's we don't really have a good biomarker of what's your biological age, but that is probably the closest thing that we have, because it's based on a massive amount of data, and they use very, very sophisticated algorithms to determine what your so-called intrinsic epigenetic age is. Now, when I went to Maxwell Clinic for my first treatment back in October, I asked them, well, what do you guys normally see in terms of epigenetic age reversal? Because I've heard this does a really good job of reversing epigenetic age. And they said, we normally see, at the 2-month mark after your first pair of treatments, we normally see a reduction of 5 or 6 years of epigenetic age. And so I was very impressed with that. But what I actually got surprised me. And let me go back to that.
Tell me when it's up and I'll put it in.
Here, I'll just go back to it now. Yeah, can you go back to the all slides there? There we go. So here's what I saw. Initially, they did a true age diagnostic test just before my first therapeutic plasma exchange treatment, and my intrinsic epigenetic age was 64.31. Now, 9 days later, that got tested again, and it was 55.3. Which is astounding, because that means I had 9 years of epigenetic age reversal in 9 days. I've never heard of anything like that ever in the history of mankind, right? You've got that biohacker Brian Johnson going around saying, oh, I've beaten the epigenetic aging age reversal world record by reversing my age like 6 years. Well, I did it 9 years and 9 days, thanks to a single pair of therapeutic plasma exchange sessions. Now, by the middle of December, it went all the way back up to 59.1 years again, which it turns out is pretty much exactly, 5.5 or so.
That's what they told you.
It's exactly what they said would happen, right? So now hopefully the 2 sessions I got in January are going to reverse that even further. Now, I should say all this on an objective level in terms of what's my epigenetic age compared to my chronological age is not great. I'm 50 years old. Walking in there with an intrinsic epigenetic age of 64.31 isn't great. Right. And I attribute that to the massive amount of stress that I was under until about the age of 45 or so in the video game industry, and the fact that I got into biohacking pretty late in the game. And so a huge amount of damage had been done. And so now I'm going overboard to try and reduce that. But I don't pretend that I was super healthy before walking into that clinic.
Well, let's address epigenetic testing. So before epigenetic testing, there was a Horvath test, and Dr. Horvath looked at literally hundreds of thousands of blood panels of average people. And he looked at the diseases they had, and he looked at their ages, and he created this approach to triangulate some very basic blood markers. And everybody gets done in their CBC, which is their traditional blood test. And interestingly enough, the one that was the most predictive of a person who was aging well or not well was their plasma. That was it. Like the plasma was like, holy crap. Like you actually start to lose plasma. The content of plasma in blood starts dropping as you age. Mm-hmm. So that was the first tip, that blood had a secret, that it had a, and then we started to seeing these people that were doing parabiosis research. We talked to a scientist probably 6 years ago. And parabiosis is where they took an old rodent and a young rodent, and they took the blood from the young rodent and put it into the old rodent. They took the blood from the old rodent and put it into the young rodent. And miraculously, over the next couple of weeks, something happened. The young rodent started to lose its hair, and it started to look like the old rodent. The old rodent started to get frisky and wanted to copulate, and its brain was working better. It was moving faster, and it acted like the young rodent. And then we realized, oh my God, like, maybe Dracula had something to teach us. I mean, look, the Chinese were the ones that really advanced this science. So let's be clear about this. So now all of a sudden people are like, wow, blood has yeah, of course. And I've been saying for over a decade, like, you change your oil in your car, but you don't change your blood. So go donate blood periodically. I've been promoting blood donation since 2006.
Yeah.
So
yeah, even basic blood donation. I mean, I certainly think therapeutic plasma exchange is far more powerful, but blood donation definitely, has been shown to reduce all-cause mortality risk depending on how frequently you donate. I think it reduces it something like 7.5% if you donate every 6 months.
Right. And those of us who are on HRT, we donate a little bit more frequently because we want to keep the iron level down, we want to keep the hematocrit down, and so on. Okay. But with that being said, epigenetic testing looks not only at these blood markers, but also indicators of epigenetic clocks in the body. And it can actually tell you that your body is functioning like a person 65. And if you're 50, that's not good. But now if you are 65 and it's functioning like a person who's 50, that's good. But what is not known yet, and this is all a crapshoot, is if the average age of an American here in this country today is 85, and you get an epigenetic test at 70, and it says you're 55, are you going to live to 95? We don't know that yet. Maybe you won't live to 95, but maybe you'll be healthier at 95 than somebody else. It may just be that. But the bottom line is we're starting to look at things that matter. Everybody thinks anti-aging is about the skin and the face and looking young and having beautiful hair. And yeah, it could be about that, but that's really not where the magic is. The magic is being able to remove the insults that are hurting your body and living longer healthier. Health span must become the new target, not lifespan. Who wants to live to be 90 and spend the last 30 years in an institution, wait for somebody to change your diaper? That's not life.
Absolutely.
All right, so now let's talk more about these the tests. So you just had another therapy in January, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I had another session of the therapeutic plasma exchange, but I don't have any of the results from that yet. One thing I wanted to add about the therapeutic plasma exchange, I've been looking a lot at my blood biomarkers. It does produce significant changes in quite a few of them, but the most interesting one was uric acid. David Perlmutter has a great book out called Drop Acid, where he talks about the incredible importance of uric acid and different ways to lower it. Now, I had read his book early last year, tried everything in the book that I could to try and lower my uric acid levels, and nothing made a difference. Before I walked into that clinic in Nashville, my uric acid level was about 7.5, which is much too high. And within about a month, it dropped it down to 2.2, which some people would say is actually too low. And it has stayed there. My most recent test for uric acid earlier this year was about 2.4. So it bottomed out and has continued to stay low. And I think that has contributed significantly to my improved health over the last couple months.
So uric acid sequestration occurs in people who use stimulants, whether it's cocaine, amphetamines, or large doses of caffeine. What were some of the things that Perlmutter suggested as adjuncts to lower uric acid?
Yeah, different dietary things. I don't remember. I tried a whole bunch of them. There's some kind of liquid droplets that I was taking for a while to try and lower my uric acid. I think I was on a drug for a little while to try and lower it, but none of it really made a difference.
But this did.
So, yes.
And you're right. When you clean the oil.
Oh, tart cherry was one of them. Tart cherry.
Really?
So I got like a tart cherry juice to try and reduce my uric acid. For me, at least, it didn't make a difference.
Right. And tart cherry is people take it for joint pain, for arthritic pain and stuff like that. The liver is called the liver for a reason. Whoever named it the liver back in the days of Hippocrates, and like whoever said that this is called the liver, it's because really it contributes to your ability to live much more than you think, not just filtering your blood. I kind of feel like the liver is a battery.
Yeah.
And I really do think that livers that function well have people who live long.
Yeah.
Totally
agree.
And this is interesting. So what I want to do right now is I want to take a break. And when we come back, I want to jump into gene therapy, because this is also another fascinating thing that you've endeavored. And then toward the end of the show, I want to talk about the you see and feel now versus before you started doing some of these more aggressive therapies. Okay.
Sounds great.
If you have questions, ask them. Now's the time to ask them. And we will be right back with more Paul Tozour and Superhuman Radio.
Hey guys, it's time to change your f***ing underwear, and it's time to change to Sheath. Sheath's underwear's revolutionary designs allows your man parts to hang the way they would naturally hang if you were not wearing underwear. And this improves the blood flow throughout the day to the twigs and berries. If you've never experienced wearing a pair of Sheath underwear, boy, is there an exciting experience waiting for you. Grab a pen and write this down. Go to shrnetwork.biz/sheath. That's SHEATH. And use the code SUPERHUMAN to save 20% off your first pair. And get this, if you're not completely satisfied, send them back for a full refund. That's shrnetwork.biz/sheath.
For 17 years, I've heard promises of devices and gadgets that could eliminate chronic pain. I live with chronic pain. I live with sciatic nerve pain. It varies from just annoying to debilitating. I love to ride my motorcycle. I ride it every day if I can. And obviously, my motorcycle doesn't treat my lumbar spine good. I got the Kylo patch and I promised to give it a try, but I got to be honest with you. I thought it was bullshit, but I did what I was instructed. Find the right spot over the pain. You'll feel the pain start to go away. Leave it there and go about your business. And I did that. And that day I got on my motorcycle and I rode for about 3 hours. It was a Saturday. I came home that day, got off my bike and had no back pain. That's rare. In fact, it's impossible. How could that be? Well, the technology is legit. And I can tell you right now, if you give Kylo a try, you'll find that you don't have to live with chronic pain. Check it out. Go to shrnetwork.biz/GoKylo. That's GOKAILO. Use code SHR30 for 30% off. There are lots of concerns about food supply today. That's why you need White Oak Pastures. White Oak Pastures will deliver food right to your doorstep. You don't even have to go out and be disappointed by shopping in grocery stores. The finest beef, pork, lamb, duck, and more can be found at White Oak Pastures. And now they even have seafood. And best of all, White Oak Pastures has a negative carbon footprint, which means that you don't have to feel guilty for eating your ribeye. Go to shrnetwork.biz/White Oak and use the code SUPERHUMAN to save 15% off. Hey, this is Carl Lenore. I am the inventor of GunLeash. Over 500,000 handguns are lost in the United States every year. If you carry a gun like I do, you are 300 times more likely to lose your gun. And 15% of those guns will end up in criminals' hands and used in the commission of a crime. GunLeash solves that problem. GunLeash is a patented, no-tracking proximity device the size of a postage stamp. It will alert you as soon as your gun is outside of your range, so you can never leave your gun behind. To learn more and to be notified when GunLeash is available at the end of January, go to gunleash.com and get on our mailing list. GunLeash. Never lose your gun, never leave your gun. BPC is one of the most amazing supplements you can use. It's been shown to increase the speed of recovery, heal the gut, and do so many other things. BPC stands for Body Protection Compound, and it's a naturally occurring peptide in the body. Used by professional athletes and weekend warriors alike, there has always been an obstacle in the way of average people using BPC, and that is it was injectable only. Not any longer, thanks to NutriNeeds. We now have oral BPC, and it works. Go to shrnetwork.biz/NutriNeeds, NutraNeeds. Use the code SHR and save 10% off your bottle of BPC. Feel better, recover faster, train harder. NutriNeeds.
This is the Superhuman Channel, where we use oxygen for the power of good.
Welcome back. Oh, what did I do wrong? Wrong button. There we go. We're talking with Paul Tozour. I call him the pro-aging juggernaut because Paul is breaking ground. There's so many people out there talking about they know what to do for anti-aging, but they really don't. None of us do. If we did, we'd already have a blueprint. We know what to do. That would be it. The world is different. The food we eat is different. The things we're exposed to are different. This is a completely unburned path right now. And people like Paul are truly blazing it for their own selfish reasons, because they want to be healthy and live for a long life, not because they want to convince you to buy their vitamins. So think about that. So let's talk a little bit about gene therapy. We've heard a lot about gene therapy over the years, and I've studied genetically modified rodents that are used for various types of research, the way they use viruses to implant the genetic change, the way they use drugs to turn it off. I remember there was a study where they took female rodents, they ovariectomized them, and they had some tissue in the body producing hormones to see what would happen. And then by giving them a single drug, and I could have sworn it was clomiphene citrate, it shut the genetic change off. Talk about your experience and the things that you've had done.
Yeah, so I've gotten 2 gene therapies at this point. The first one, and I want to talk about them both. The first one was with Integrated Health Systems. That's sort of associated with BioViva. I believe BioViva does data analysis for them. But Integrated Health Systems gave me telomerase gene therapy in March of 2021. And then more recently, just this last October, I participated in a clinical trial with an Austin-based company called MiniCircle that injected plasmids encoding follistatin. So let me start off by talking about the telomere gene therapy. When I think it was late 2020, I got a blood test for telomere length. I wanted to know how long my telomeres were, and what I found was absolutely shocking. I was like below the bottom 1% of the population. I was like several standard deviations outside the norm. My telomeres were so short they barely even existed. For a little bit of background, most of your listeners probably know this, but your telomeres are the little caps at the ends of your chromosomes. They're these little shoelace tips. They're these long strands of repeating DNA sequences, and their job is to protect the chromosome. And when you're young, your telomeres are super long, but each time your cells divide, the copied chromosome is one telomere shorter. And so by the time you get to like the age of 7 or 8, your telomeres are half the length than they were when you were a baby. And the more stress you're under, the faster they shrink. Because your cells are dividing faster, and you've got all sorts of, insults that are coming in and causing telomere shrinkage.
You hear that? Here, listen, these are my telomeres shrinking. Listen.
So, and there's also, what's called the Hayflick limit, which is humans basically cannot live past the age of 120 or so because of our telomeres. So if we want to have any hope of living past 120, then we've got to do something about our telomeres. Bill Andrews gave a great talk on this at RadFest in San Diego in October of 2022, and made the point very, very eloquently. That if we want serious life extension past the age of 120, nothing else matters unless we also address telomeres. So whatever else people may say about them, telomeres are important. So anyway, back to what I was saying. I got the results of this telomere test, and it was terrifying because it's like, okay, my telomeres have, the little fuses at the ends of my chromosomes have burned down so much they almost don't exist. Nothing I've been doing has been making my telomeres any longer, because I'd been doing everything I could think of to make them longer, and taking every supplement known to man to try and elongate them, and nothing made any difference at all. And so I was in a panic mode, and I had seen Liz Parrish's talk at RadFest 2019. She was talking about a gene therapy that she'd had done on herself that made her own telomeres longer. So I signed up for the same gene therapy. So now let me show you the results. Are you able to enable these slides?
Yep.
There we go. Okay, so it's this slide right here, and it put both of these slides on the same page. But just looking at the lower one, essentially the bottom dot on there is the results of my first telomere test, 9 kb. So you see it's below that red line. The red, line going down is essentially the bottom 5 to 10% of the population. So for my age group, I was below the lowest 1% of the population. I had unnaturally short telomeres. Now, the next red dot that you see is about 9 months after I got my telomerase gene therapy. And it shows that my telomeres had actually regrown. So now I was in the bottom 5 to 10% of the population. And then the circled,
the blue circle.
Yeah, the blue circle that's in the orange was
mustard colored band. Right?
Yeah, in the mustard colored band. Thank you. Is about 9 months after that, and that's a subsequent telomere test from a different telomere vendor, which is why I did it in a different color. But anyway, that sort of shows the progression of the lengths of my telomeres. And it's just made an incredible bounce thanks to this gene therapy. So this really proved that the gene therapy works. Now, Integrated Health Systems, their gene therapy is based on essentially a disabled viral vector. It's like a phage. It's a virus that cannot replicate. All it does is it takes the DNA payload for whatever they want to encode. And in this case, it's human telomerase, injects it into all your cells, and then that DNA goes into the nucleus, and then it just continually gets encoded for telomerase, and then that telomerase goes around to all your other chromosomes and extends all the telomeres of all your other chromosomes.
Yeah, and there's a lot of debate whether or not the speed in which your telomeres shorten or the absolute length of your telomeres plays a bigger role in longevity. but the telomeres play a role, period.
Yes.
That's what everybody
Yes.
should understand.
Absolutely.
Now, the graph above is the girl. What was her name?
Yes, Liz Parrish. She's the founder of BioViva. She is the first person to have received this therapy. And so the blue bar all the way on the left. So this is a slide from her RadFest presentation in October of 2022. Tremendous presentation. Definitely watch it if you get a chance. But this slide, if you understand what this means, this is absolutely mind-boggling because this is the length of her telomeres every 2 years. So the pure blue bar all the way on the left is where she started. I think it's a little under 9. Let me look at the original to see exactly what the length is. Yeah, so it's like a little over. It's just under 7 kb.
Wow, you're shorter than yours.
Yeah, apparently so, which is surprising. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's the mean instead of the median telomere length, or maybe it's measuring something slightly different. But anyway, each successive bar is 2 years later. So she just got this one therapy 10 years ago, and her telomeres have been regrowing, continuously since then. And the orange is showing you the additional telomere length. And this never happens in humans, right? I don't think this exists. This ever happens in anyone who has not gotten gene therapy. And so they've just gotten continuously longer over time. She did get the therapy again, I think, like at the halfway point. She had it done twice, but I don't know if that second therapy actually made a difference.
I always have to mention this because it's true. I had a scientist from Scandinavia on the show, I guess probably about 6 or 7 years ago. His name was Patrick Dahlin. And he published a study that has since been ignored because red meat is bad. But they looked at 26 foods and beverages, and they did this test. They looked at telomeres before, and then they had the people eat these foods and beverages, I think, for 6 months, and looked again. The only food that made telomeres grow was beef.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
And, they're telling us how beef is bad. And, I had a discussion this morning with Elisa. And she's telling me about these new studies that are coming out and what they're saying about red meat. And red meat is bad for the microbiome. And, I wouldn't have had an argument a few years ago, but thanks to Sean Baker, we now have an N equals many study happening right under our noses that the government wants to ignore. They don't even want to talk about it. But Sean Baker, through his Rivero website, where he promotes his carnivore diet, has literally helped hundreds of thousands now, not 10,000, not 5, hundreds of thousands of people who had diseases for 20, 30 years, Crohn's disease, rheumatoid arthritis, and they got rid of all their drugs and they started eating exclusively beef every day for whatever meals they needed.
Wow.
And their diseases have gone away.
That's
the
amazing.
rheumatoid arthritis has gone away. The Crohn's disease has gone away. You name it, it's gone away. And I said to Elisa, I said, yeah, I know. There's a new probiotic that everybody likes, Akkermansia. And when you take resveratrol or you take metformin, Akkermansia goes up in the gut, and everybody's trying to get Akkermansia. I said, but the funny thing about that is, when you eat exclusively meat, Akkermansia almost disappears completely. So maybe Akkermansia really isn't that good. And maybe we've never had something to compare. Like we've always said, well, this is a bad microbe. This is a good microbe. But we don't know really because we've never seen a population like Sean Baker is creating.
Right.
People who eat exclusively meat have probably no Akkermansia in their gut, and they are thriving. They're literally getting younger looking. They feel better. They're getting stronger. Diseases are going. This is what Sean Baker is doing today. 30 years from now is going to be an amazing event. It's going to disqualify all the bullshit that people think they know about nutrition. And it's going to be, and you won't be able to ignore it, because when you have hundreds of thousands of people undergoing a complete health transformation by eliminating, you got to have all the colors on your plate, and you got to have enough heart healthy grains. And like, that's all bullshit. We didn't eat like that thousands of years ago until 40,000 years ago, we became agrarian. We started growing stuff. That's when everything went bad.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's fascinating. It's going to be really interesting to see.
Yeah.
But look at that. I mean, I would do this. I would do this in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
How much is it to get the telomere shots?
Yeah, so this one is actually crazy expensive. It's 6 figures. They have a couple different tiers depending on whether you want 2 billion or 3 billion or 4 billion phages injected into your system. So I don't know what their pricing looks like nowadays. The cost is always changing, but just look up integrated health systems online. If you're willing to spend, the price of a very expensive car or a very small house on gene therapy, this is something worth doing. But that sort of leads me into the next gene therapy that I got, which is Minicircle's follistatin plasmid therapy.
This is I can change a slide here. Oh no, that's
I don't have any slides for this one.
Okay.
So
let's just take it down then. Okay.
Yeah, we can turn off the slides for this. So Minicircle, Minicircle has a totally different approach to gene therapy. Instead of using a disabled viral vector the way integrated health systems does, they use what are called plasmids. They're just circles of pure DNA, and they inject a couple million, a couple billion, I don't know how many of these plasmid DNA circles into your abdominal fat, and they just sit there and continually encode for whatever protein they're supposed to encode. And it's very interesting what they're doing, because the plasmids last for about 18 months and just naturally expire. You can also disable them. They have a built-in kill switch. So you can take tetracycline or doxycycline if you want to stop the experiment for whatever reason, or you think maybe it's causing some sort of negative side effects. Take tetracycline or doxycycline and it'll kill off all the plasmids. I was part of a clinical trial, so it was essentially free except for, the flights and the hotels and all the blood testing and DEXA scans before and after. But I was part of a clinical trial in the middle of October in Roatan off the coast of Honduras for a Minicircle plasmid therapy encoding follistatin 344. Now, as a lot of your listeners probably know, follistatin, is a very important protein in the body. It essentially suppresses the myostatin in our muscles and allows the muscles to grow. So I was expecting that from this therapy, I would see some improvements in body composition by suppressing myostatin with this follistatin that was now being dramatically increased in my bloodstream. Follistatin also has a lot of other health benefits. I believe it increases FOXO3, so it has a significant longevity effect.
In fact, I communicated with Sejan Lee early on when I started doing this show, and I tried to get him on the show, but he thought my desire to add muscle was selfish, because he was trying to help children with muscular dystrophy, and I wanted to be bigger and stronger. But he was kind enough to reply to my emails, and I had 2 phone calls with him, and he was very generous with his time. So the rodents that he used, the rodents that they suppressed myostatin by themselves had this really amazing muscle growth. Mm-hmm. But the rodents that they increased follistatin had 3 times that muscle growth. They looked like freaks, these rodents. They just look like giant. So follistatin is the magic. It is.
Yes. So follistatin, I am a big believer in follistatin, and it's another one of those molecules that is high when we're young and declines significantly with age, right? I mean, pregnant women and embryos have a level of like 50 to 60, I think, nanograms per milliliter, and then it goes into like your low 20s by the time you're a teenager, and then by the time you get to 50, I think it's like low single digits. In theory, this plasmid therapy was supposed to get it up to around 21 or 22 nanograms per milliliter, because that's around what they saw in the first cohort. But in the second cohort, I didn't see any changes in body composition at all. Essentially in the 2 months before I started taking Mounjaro, which is another story, I saw essentially no real changes, outside of the margin of error in fat or lean mass.
Oh, good. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So it didn't work for me. talking to some of the other folks in the same cohort, they saw similar results. So I'm not sure exactly what happened there, but I want to say I'm still very, very bullish on MiniCircle because this is a very unique therapy. It's extremely cost effective. Their total manufacturing costs, I think, are low 5 figures for the entire cohort of more than a dozen people. And so once they go commercial with this, whether it's encoding for follistatin or anything else they decide, right? You could have these plasmids encode for clotho or telomerase or, FGF21 or whatever the heck you want to do. And they could do that for probably, $10,000-$20,000. They haven't set the price yet, but I know that that's, sort of in the range of what they're talking about. And so this is certainly far more affordable than something like the telomerase gene therapy that I got from Integrated Health Systems.
All right. I want to take our last commercial break. When we come back, I want to talk about Mounjaro and I was going to say prostaglandin. What am I thinking of, Paul?
Ozempic?
Yeah, no, not Ozempic, but the actual class of drug.
Yeah.
These are. I'll remember when I come back. I'm sorry.
We'll figure it out.
I'm not sleeping well right now. All right, stay tuned. We'll be right back. Merrick Health is a premium telehealth platform that connects customers with partnered providers from the comfort of your home. Merrick provides concierge service with your very own patient care provider as your health advocate. You'll go over all your needs and goals from improving sexual function, hair loss prevention, increased muscle, fat loss, and overall improved performance. Prescribed treatment options can be ordered and shipped directly to you if you meet the requirements. All from the comfort of your home. Go to shrnetwork.biz/Merrick Health. That's MAREKHEALTH and order your comprehensives and get 10% off with code SHR. Don't forget to add the lab analysis to have results reviewed with potential over-the-counter supplements or treatment recommendations. That's shrnetwork.biz/Merrick Health and use code SHR at checkout. Or order your own desired labs with code SHR and get 10% off your first lab order. Remember those rectangular toaster pastries you used to love when you were a kid? Well, Legendary Foods has just made them better. The new cake-style tasty pastry is like nothing you've ever had before. With 20 grams of high-quality protein and less than 1 gram of sugar, you'll feel like you're cheating, but you're not. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and use the code SHR10 to save 10% off your purchase of tasty pastries. Now available in cookies and cream, red velvet cake, birthday cake, blueberry, strawberry, brown sugar cinnamon, and hot fudge sundae. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and use code SHR10 today. Great sleep upgrades you on virtually every level. Body fat, muscle mass, mood, brain function, and countless other ways. But taking melatonin alone isn't the answer. Thanks to a brand new sleep formula developed by my friends at Bioptimizers, you can experience the best night's sleep ever. Sleep Breakthrough is a delicious sleep drink that supports your natural melatonin production and relaxation without creating a dependency so you can have the best night's sleep on demand. It targets 5 different sleep pathways to give you the best sleep ever. And best of all, you'll wake up feeling rested and rejuvenated so that you can have the best day possible. For an exclusive offer for my listeners, go to sleepbreakthrough.com/SHR and use the code SHR10 for 10% off. Plus, you can unlock special gifts with the value of at least $20. This is a limited time offer, so go to sleepbreakthrough.com/SHR right now.
Dogs should be powered by fat and protein, not carbs. That's why Visionary Pet makes low-carb, ketogenic dog food for dogs of all breeds and life stages. From kibble to freeze-dried and even low-carb treats, all Visionary Pet recipes are very low-carb, ketogenic, and made with 100% real meat protein. Shop now and use code SHR for 20% off your first order today. Your dog deserves the lifelong benefits of optimal nutrition. Make the switch to Visionary and see why smart dogs eat low carb.
Move over, superheroes. This is the Superhuman Channel.
Welcome back. I'm not sleeping at all lately, to be honest with you. I haven't slept in 2 nights. I have so much stress on me with this gun leash project, and I'm working with a company in India that's building our app, and we've hit a brick wall, and it's almost, I can see the problem, but they can't, and they are the people building the app, and I'm so frustrated. In fact, if anyone Paul, that can code for iOS, I'd like an introduction, because I got to find somebody here in the United States to work with. This is ridiculous.
I'll keep an eye out. Yeah.
And anybody who's listening, if you write app code for iOS, email me at onair@superhumanradio.net. I may have a project for you. Anyway, so the drug I was trying to think of is one of the glutides. I can't think of what it's called now. Isn't it something?
Semaglutide.
Semaglutide, yeah, it's one of them. But that's what this Mounjaro is, right? It's one of these.
Yeah, it's similar. It's called
agonists.
tirzepatide,
Right.
but it's actually even more effective than Ozempic. In terms of the amount of weight lost. It is, I hate to say it, but it's kind of a miracle pill, right? It's not a pill, it's an injection, or a magic bullet. So I started taking, so I had been using Ozempic for a couple months last year. But when I switched to Mounjaro on December 1st, and since then I've lost 25 pounds basically effortlessly. It's absolutely
you're eating less, right? It's not running your metabolism. You're just eating less, right?
Yes, I'm eating less, but it also makes a lot of other changes in addition to changing your appetite, right? It increases your basal metabolic rate. It changes the way your body processes glucose and insulin, and
Really?
I'm not sure, but there's a whole bunch of different things that it's doing simultaneously. So it's not just the appetite reduction, although there certainly is profound appetite reduction.
So are you still maintaining as much protein intake as you did before you started using Mounjaro?
Almost. I'm still, making sure, my protein intake is really high, and the majority of my calories do come from protein. I'm trying as hard as I can to make sure that I minimize the amount of muscle that's lost along with that. Unfortunately, about half of, based on a couple of DEXA scans I've done since I started this, about half of the weight that I've lost has come from loss of muscle mass, which is, is tragic. And I saw a study saying in general, it's something like 41% of the weight lost in most people from these drugs is muscle mass. But at the same time, the results that I'm getting are so fantastic that I just can't, I really feel like I need to
ride it out. You want to ride it out because you could always go back and start building muscle after you get
exactly. And that's the plan. I'm 193 pounds at this point. I haven't been 193 pounds in decades. I think not since my 20s.
Right.
So that's just incredible. And to have this weight loss this quickly over this short an amount of time, I feel like I need to keep doing this, see where it'll take me, and then once I bottom out, I'll just get on a low maintenance dose and focus on putting the muscle mass back on.
So, do you think that Mounjaro inhibits mTOR?
I don't believe so. No, I'm not aware of. I should say I'm not aware of any effects on mTOR one way or the other.
Let's get some of these comments up here because I've been letting them run. Kevin Ryan says, I've been donating blood every 3 months since February 2017. Makes me happy to hear that it's a good thing. Iris Davis. Do you know Iris?
Nope.
Iris is an IFBB Pro competitor, and she's going to be 80 soon, and she's thinking of competing, but she's in amazing shape, and she's an example of that, the true bodybuilding lifestyle, eating for low insulin levels throughout the day, getting good sleep, training hard every single day. I mean, she does amazing things with her body. I've seen her do some of her training online. So she says, I was planning to retire from competing when I reach the age of 80, which is soon, but perhaps after listening to your show, maybe I can continue. And by the way, I am the oldest female bodybuilder in the USA and probably the world right now. And I love the subject you're discussing today. And she also said as a follow-up, Kevin said, that's amazing about her being the oldest pro. And then let's see here. He just started taking Mounjaro for weight loss 2 weeks ago. I am taking 2.5 milligrams a week. What is the proper dosage, do you think?
Right. So I would say you definitely want to consult with whoever prescribed this to you, because it is a prescription medication. Ask them what dosage you should be on. I can't sit here and say, I mean, I'm certainly not a doctor. I'm not going to make any recommendations at all about that. What I can say is from my own experience, the functional medicine practitioner who prescribed it for me initially recommended that 2.5 milligrams once per week. But I think I read the directions wrong. I ended up taking double that. But I got such good results that he decided, okay, we'll keep it at a 5 milligram
Yeah,
dose.
if you're not nauseous, because I think the upper limits, the people start getting nauseous. If you didn't get nauseous from that must be okay for you.
No nausea at all for me. As some people I believe do experience that side effect, but for me personally, I never experienced any significant amount of nausea. But again, make sure you're consulting with whoever prescribed that and find out for your body specifically what is the proper dose.
Right, a glucagon GLP-1 agonist. That's what I couldn't think of. Glucagon-like peptide 1 agonist. All of these drugs are GLP-1 agonists. They fall into that category. Okay, anything we missed? So, okay, here's what I want to ask. You've done a lot of stuff. Since when you started doing these interventions and now, how do you feel? What do you notice? Anything?
Yeah, so a lot of different things. So I'll say, first of all, when I did the therapeutic plasma exchange, I noticed every time I do that, I notice an immediate difference. I do it on a Tuesday and then follow up 2 days later. So 2 sessions on the same week. Every time I do a Tuesday session, I have this feeling that's very hard to describe, but feeling like a lot of the junk that's accumulated in my body over the last 50 years has just been flushed away, because that's literally what's happening. But I can actually feel a lot of that. I feel a little bit anemic, but I get amazing sleep that night. I consistently get 9 hours of sleep the following night. And usually, quite often in the following week. And my deep sleep is also excellent for at least a week or 2 after I do that therapeutic plasma exchange. So that's pretty awesome. Again, 25 pounds lost with the Mounjaro over the last 2.5 months, which is awesome. I started doing the ARX when it was delivered to my house in September of last year. Did pack on a ton of muscle mass. I packed on like 7 pounds of muscle mass within the first 2 months. I've lost now an equivalent of that exact same amount of muscle mass thanks to the Mounjaro. But it's awesome that I now have that in my house, and I've changed my workout regimen to focus more on the hypertrophy rather than the strength. You had recommended using Katsu bands, and so I now have a couple of the, official Katsu bands that give you the correct amount of pressure at all times, and so I'm using those with a lot of my ARX workouts now, for the hypertrophy.
Good.
So a lot of those things are happening. I definitely notice really good energy levels, mental clarity, all of those things seem to be heading in the right direction.
So I have been proposing, and this is what this doctor contacted me out on the West Coast. I should have charged him a consulting fee. I'm just too willing to help, I guess. But I said, you don't have to do plasmapheresis. You can donate plasma and let it build new plasma, because you can actually donate plasma up to twice a week. That's how fast plasma replenishes on its own.
Yeah.
And then I said, but you really need to make sure that these people have as healthy a liver as possible, so that the new proteins coming from the liver, which is like 85% of the proteins in your plasma, is like when you were young.
Right.
And he was asking me, like I said, well, make sure their iron levels are appropriate, high iron. If they have fibrosis or fatty liver, address that now. Get all that stuff done first. And when their liver assays come back and you go, wow, this guy or this gal's liver is great, now let them go donate plasma. Because, I have a place real close to me that I'm going to use very shortly. They said that they'll pay me to give plasma.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So there's a similar place in Austin that I went to once thinking it was a blood donation place. And, there were all these people waiting around for like a $400 credit card, for donating their plasma. So
I'm like, now, I just want to get rid of it. I don't care. I don't want the money. I just want to get rid of it.
Yeah. So it's definitely, it's free, or they're paying you. So it's way cheaper than, flying all the way out to Nashville and doing this therapeutic plasma exchange. But I do want to say, we don't yet know the effects of that compared to therapeutic plasma exchange, right? Because when I get the therapeutic plasma exchange, it's 70% of your blood all at once, and they're injecting human albumin at the same time, which is very, very important. Plus, I get exosomes at the end of every Thursday treatment, and I have to believe those exosomes are also making a big difference. And Irina Conboy's research, as well as Dr. Dobir Kipro's research, is all about this, therapeutic plasma exchange, exchanging a huge fraction of your blood plasma at once, something like 40 to 70% per therapy. And I believe Dr. Conboy is now starting a new trial of,
they're getting their IRB right now. And,
right.
Because I want to be in it. I says, I'd like to be in it. And all it takes is donating your own plasma.
Yeah,
and waiting for it to replenish and doing tests periodically. I'm sure
it's good for you. I just want to say that we're not yet able to prove that it has similar effects to therapeutic plasma exchange, and we're not able to quantify how many sessions of that would you need to do and how frequently to achieve similar results.
So if I start donating plasma twice a month, let's start out slow. On the days I donate, I would imagine. Is it okay if I already trained in the morning, you think?
Yeah, should be.
And I probably should take off the next couple of days while my body is building new plasma.
Yes, I would assume so.
Yeah.
Yep.
That sounds reasonable. I mean,
yeah. But again, to replicate the effects of therapeutic plasma exchange, you'd have to get rid of 70% of your plasma. And you got to ask yourself, how many sessions of these, plasma donation would I have to do to replicate those results if you're getting 10% or so of your plasma session?
I asked this question to Adele Musa, let's see, probably about 9 years ago, because I was saying, how many blood donations would I have to give? Because he's a physicist, and so he understands physics. I says, if you have a closed system and it has 12 pints of fluid in it, and you want to take 1 pint out at a time and put a brand new pint back in. Now, obviously, that pint you're putting in is going to be dirtied by the existing. How many times would I have to do it if it's a closed system? And if I remember correctly, he told me 15 times.
Yeah.
So it would take you 2 years to do that with blood because you can't donate but every 2 months.
Right.
But plasma, you could get 15 probably in a year.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you can donate is it like every 4 or 5 days or something like that?
Every 4 or 5 days you can donate plasma.
Yeah.
And just for the record, they use that plasma in hospitals.
Yep.
And do you ever see the people that go donate plasma for money?
Yeah.
I don't think I'd want their plasma put in.
They didn't look healthy. They didn't look healthy. A lot of them, seemed like they're people off the street who just needed the money.
Most of them are alcoholics. Most of them are alcohol. They walk in, they stumble in, they got a couple $100. They drink, they come back a week or two later and they do it again.
Yep.
I mean, it's terrible. I wouldn't want their plasma. I'm not being mean.
Yeah. No, you make a great point.
So I want to say one thing. Superhuman Radio is going to stop this year. We'll probably run old shows, rerun them because we have some really great shows. But I'm probably not going to be doing live shows very much throughout the rest of the year. And I got to be honest, I can't wait to not do this show anymore because this space, especially with all the biohackers, has really become a cluster of assholes. Most of the biohackers out there, and there's good ones, Dr. Peter T, a great guy. I mean, there's people out there that are doing real stuff, but the majority of people have big followings, except Mark Bell, Joe Rogan. I mean, they're good. They're good guys. They're doing good stuff. But if you notice, in order to have a following today, you have to be willing to claim absurdity. You have to be willing to say completely ridiculous things like, I'm going to live to 160 and this vitamin is helping me. Like people who say that kind of stuff, you know they're not right. You know it's not true. They know it's not true. And I don't want to be part of this anymore. I really, really don't. But what I do want to say is, given that, share this show because very few shows talk about stuff like this. They all talk about a supplement, magic beans, magic powder, ice baths. Ice baths are great. It's great. But this kind of stuff is real scientific, research-driven approaches to reversing the damaging effects of just everyday aging. And that's what we all really want at the end of the day. So please share the shows, because you never know. You're going to help maybe one person. Person. Here, let's see. Iris Davis is so glad I got to hear your shows before you go off the air as a guest. She was a guest as well. And it's great always, and love you. Thank you very much. And Sean Wasson is going with me. They'll be talking about you 5 years from now. Yeah, they will. They probably will. But maybe this time they'll actually admit it instead of just stealing my stuff and just making like they came up with it. But Sean Watson's going with me. He was one of my first investors in Gunleash. So we're all going for a great ride. All right, look, Paul, check back in. Let us know what's going on.
You bet.
Great to have you here. You should have your own podcast. I'm just saying.
Thanks, Carl.
I'm
really
being
appreciate
sincere.
it.
Because I know you won't sell supplements. You'll just come out and want to talk.
Yeah. Yep. Maybe someday.
All right. Thanks so much. Thanks to everybody for being here today. And we will see you tomorrow with more Superhuman Radio. And don't forget, share the show. Share the show.
All right. Thanks, Carl.